Now we get into Phase 2 casting. First off, we have Martian Manhunter. Now, there isn't a lot of a supporting cast when it comes to the Martian Manhunter character. I could probably count the amount of Martian Manhunter supporting characters on one hand. However, I did my best to find who could be added. First is Captain Harding, who is the police chief for the Middleton Police. He's sort of an older, gruffer character, and I think a good choice for him would be Alec Baldwin. Then for John Jones's partner, Diane Mead, who is a no-nonsense kind of cop, but admires Jones's skill despite noticing at times something is a bit up with him. I would want Juliette Lewis for the role. Then I'm going to have Aubrey Sparks in the film. In the comics, she became the villain Scorch after being experimented on, but was sort of a love interest for Jones. But in this film, she's going to remain herself. Due to the fact that she just finished another DC property, or in this world hasn't done it yet, I think a good fit for the role would be Regina King. Then is the character of Saul Erdel, who is the scientist who brought Jones to Earth. In some continuities, he dies of a heart attack, in others he's batshit insane, but this version I would want him to be a kinder voice of reason type of character, with a chip on his shoulder which is carrying this burden of having Jones stuck on Earth and not being able to help him. A great fit would be Alan Alda. Then finally, for previously established characters, we have the killer who is behind it all, Malafak Jones. I mean, it's Jones' most famous rival, and he really doesn't have a ton to choose from, so it makes sense to have him as the killer that Jones is hunting. For the person I want to play him is Ray Fisher. Even though I never liked Cyborg being part of the initial lineup of the Justice League, one of the few good things about the movie was Ray Fisher. He did a great job in the role, and due to him being more stoic and serious, I think he would be a good villain. And I am pulling a page out of Supergirl by making him the younger brother of John, because that would be a bit more effective in the long run. I don't want him to be wasted, so I think his talents would be good here. I'm also going to include some smaller detectives to act as padding for the rest of the cast. These are actually Flash supporting characters, but since there are a bunch of police detectives from his cast of characters that would remain unused, I thought I would use them here. Frank Curtis would be played by Josh Lucas, Matthew Paulson would be played by Liam Neeson, and Fred Shire would be played by Stephen Lang. Up next is Aquaman, and this mostly stays the same with a couple exceptions. First is his father. Due to the fact that Aquaman is no longer a darker male like Jason Momoa, the guy who played Jango Fett, forgot his name, wouldn't make sense for his father. So I picked Aaron Eckhart. He played a villain, sure, but I think he could play that small but memorable role as Tom Curry. Next is Mera, and due to obvious reasons, she will no longer be played by Amber Heard, but played by Vanessa Kirby. I think she could play the role really well. Patrick Wilson, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Willem Dafoe, Nicole Kidman, and Dolph Lundgren would all stay the same for their respected roles, as well as all the smaller roles for various characters. Alright, now we get into the show, Teen Titans. Let's do this. Due to the fact that this is so incredibly different from the original show, I'm not going to be using any of the original cast members, as well as the fact I actually want them to be teenagers, hence Teen Titans instead of just Titans. However, I will use one recurring cast member, and I think you might already know where I'm going with this, but I'll get there when I get there. So the main cast are Nightwing, Starfire, Beast Boy, Cyborg, Raven, Omen, and Jesse Quick. For Nightwing, I had a couple of ideas, but I think that Ty Simpkins would be a good choice. He was good in Iron Man 3, and if he can play off of RDJ well, I think he could do a great job here. Then there's Starfire, and I think a great choice would be Elle Fanning. She has that naivety that would be good for the Starfire, but also having that badassness that would be necessary. Beast Boy was a bit of a tough one because I did actually have Cameron Boyce as the original choice, but since that very unfortunately can't happen, I think the next best choice would be Griffin Gluck. He's a solid actor and he's really good at being the comic relief, but can be serious when need be. Cyborg, we could get more of an unknown like Tyrell Jackson Williams. More so known for Disney stuff, but I think he could be a good addition. Raven, I see no one else other than Millie Bobby Brown. 11 is literally just Raven, but without the dark magic. Tragic backstory, major daddy issues, mostly emotionless. She's perfect. Omen, I see as Annalise Basso. Might as well stick with her from my Titans rewrite video. She's young enough, so it could work. Then finally we have Jesse Quick, and I recently watched Lock and Key, and I think Emilia Jones would be good as sort of the well-rounded speedster that Jesse is. So that rounds out the main cast. I won't be adding any other heroes because I want to focus on the development of the 7 heroes from start to finish. And I feel like adding any other heroes would be just trying to bait people into watching it with fan-favorite characters. Plus, much like the original comic, you could have various types of stories depending on the character that is the focus. There will be a main villain, but it will be a slow burn. The last 3 seasons will be very different from the first because the first will be about the formation and the villain, while the next 3 seasons will be more so different kinds of stories depending on the characters, while the villain won't be as big of an issue like with other shows. They'll be there and be a formidable threat, but it will mostly be about the characters and their adventures outside of the big bad. For the casting of the villains, though, it will be S.I. Morales for Deathstroke. Even though he got the shit end of the stick in Titans, I think he was an excellent choice for the role. When he was actually given time to actually act out a scene and be intimidating, he was fucking great. For the Season 2 villain, Cynthia Erivo will be Queen Bee. She's a great actress and built like a fucking tank, so she could be intimidating physically as well. For Brother Blood, I think a rather out there casting would be Jamie Dornan. He's a good actor, and I think he could play a good subtle villain, mainly because with the very, very few clips I've seen of 50 Shades of Grey, he really plays the part like a villain, which I personally think was on purpose by Dornan, but that's beside the point. With that, I think he would do a good job. Lastly is Trigon, and I think a great choice would be Crispin Glover. Yes, he's older, but I think he could make it really work and bring a whole new creepiness to the character of Trigon. Next up is Shazam, and it pretty much has the same exact cast. Everyone stays the same, nobody's different, it all worked together so well, so might as well keep it. Only thing I'm changing is their names. At the end, I want everyone to get a name deriving from Captain Marvel, as that is the name I want him to get at the end of the film because that's his name, damn it. I don't give a fuck about Marvel copyright. He was the character first, and he deserves the fucking name. Except the title of the movie because obvious reasons, but shut up, he's fucking Captain Marvel. Next up is The Flash. So we actually have a lot of really good supporting characters in the Flash mythos. As I stated before, I'm doing something controversial and not have Nora Allen die or have Henry Allen be in prison, mainly because we've seen that before, and it would be interesting to really go back to the Silver Age version of the character and reintroduce that to audiences, as well as the fact that it would be interesting to show that not every superhero backstory has to be tragic. With that, Henry Allen will be played by Eric Bana and Nora Allen will be played by Jerry Ryan. 2 good but not incredibly popular actors. Plus, I think they would be good choices for the roles. Then we have Iris West, and while there would be many good actresses for the role, I think Carly Chaikin would be great. I finally finished watching Mr. Robot a while back, and she is a terrific and pretty underrated actor. I think she would be great in the role. Ira West would be played by Eddie Marsan. For the role of an absent-minded professor, I think he would be good. Plus, Edgar Wright has worked with him before, so it would make sense that he would incorporate someone he's worked with before into a new movie, I should say. Patty Spivot would be played by Natalia Dyer, and this version of the character would be a shyer and more reserved version who would slowly come out of her shell over the course of the film. Then the villain would also be played by Lucas Till, since Cobalt Blue and the Flash are identical twins. Next is Luthor. Luthor is kind of easy since there aren't a ton of new characters to bring in. We have Hall and Beals returning, as well as various cameos from various heroes and villains throughout the story that is planned. However, I think I'm going to include various smaller villains that have appeared in various other Superman-related media, as well as more C and D-list Superman villains. So, here we go. I'm going to have Otis, like from the original Superman films, but similar to what Supergirl did with him, make him the brother of Mercy Graves. Have him be maybe a personal private investigator for Luthor to spy on rivals and stuff like that. He could be played by Jay Courtney. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't like him, but he did a good job as Captain Boomerang and was one of the highlights of that crap fest. Plus, he would have a rather small role here. Another person I'll add is Eve Tessmacher. Have her be a secretary or an assistant to Mercy Graves. She would be played by Ashley Johnson. With other characters I'm going to include are John Corbin, Pre-Metallo, played by Wes Bentley, Bruno Mannheim, played by John Goodman, and Morgan Edge, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, I know, big actor for the role, but he would do it damn well, even if it's unlikely. Raymond Jensen, Pre-Parasite, played by James Franco. Good smaller role that would show off his acting chops. Emil Hamilton, played by Jeff Daniels, and finally, Mr. Quigley, played by D.B. Woodside. Quigley was a one-off Superman villain called the Archer, and I think it would be cool if he was like a silent assassin for Luthor if he wanted things taken care of. Just something interesting to bring into this world. Batman is an interesting one. There's not a whole lot of cast because most of it is cast already, but there's still a bit we need to do, mainly with the villains and some supporting cast. The main villain is the Riddler, and I decided that the smaller villain should be Clayface. I'm still deciding on what to use him for, but I think he would be a good addition to the movie. The plan I would most likely use for him is sort of a cold open before the movie really starts, similar to what Two-Face was in Batman Forever, but difference is, Clayface won't be used later on. Anywho, with the Riddler, there has been tons of fan castings for the role. I've seen Neil Patrick Harris, David Tennant, Johnny Depp, Hugh Laurie, and plenty of others. But the person I would want for the role, and who I think would be perfect, is Matthew Gray Gubler. He's a weird and eccentric guy, and I think his strangeness and mannerisms would be great for the role. He has voiced him in the past already, link in the description, so people are already thinking of it, so might as well use that shit. He sounds the part and looks the part. He'd be great. Moving on to Clayface, I think a good actor for the role is Desmond Harrington for when he's human. It won't be a lot of the time, as it would mainly be a CGI monster, but for the small amount of screen time the human version would have, it would be awesome. The last two characters I'll be casting are Harvey Bullock and Tim Drake. Tim Drake won't become Robin until the very end of the movie. He'll just show up sporadically at certain points in the film. Who I would want for those roles are Paul Giamatti and Wyatt Oleff. I think they would be very good for their respected roles. Wonder Woman pretty much stays the same with the exception of Ares. I don't think the Sir Patrick twist was all that great, mainly because it was spoiled for most people when David Thewlis was cast, as well as the fact that Thewlis wasn't right for the role. I think Sir Patrick and Ares should stay separate characters, and the person who should play Ares should be Nikolaj Coster-Waldau. Yes, I'm once again borrowing from Nando's version of Wonder Woman, but it's honestly solid casting, you know? And I'm already using the fucking third act from his video, so again, use it. So, whatever. Elseworlds, I'm not going to be casting because it's an anthology series with a different cast for each episode or for every couple of episodes, so there won't be any casting for now. I'll probably make a separate video about Elseworlds in the future. Green Arrow is certainly an exciting one because pretty much the entire cast is up for grabs, with the exception of Black Canary. So, for Green Arrow, I believe the perfect casting choice for him would be Garrett Hedlund. He looks the part, is very talented, and I believe he has the likability, charisma, and chops to play the more lighthearted Oliver Queen. Charlie Hunnam can suck my ass. For Count Vertigo, I think a great choice would be Thomas Kretschmann. Very good at playing evil characters. Then there will be some smaller characters like Mac Morgan, a police officer that helps Green Arrow, and then Sandra Hawk will be making a small appearance, as well as Konstantin Draken, or Dracon, or however you pronounce it. Mac Morgan will be played by Jeff Bridges, Sandra Hawk will be played by Kitty Zhang, and Konstantin Draken will be played by Scott Adkins. Justice League 2 is certainly plentiful with casting, with the crime syndicate and all. First off is Ultraman. I did consider Matt Bomer for the role, as he would be a great Superman, but also his evil doppelganger. But due to the fact that I assume, or at least hopefully assuming, that Doom Patrol would still be airing at this time, he would be busy with that. And I actually respect Doom Patrol and don't want to take away a great part for that. So I think the next best choice for a purely evil Superman, and not someone who would be good as both, is Michael Fassbender. He has proved exceptionally with Magneto for 8 years, and I think he would be great as Ultraman. Next would be Owlman, and I honestly cannot think of anyone more perfect than Christian Bale. Due to the fact I was never a huge fan of his Batman and always preferred his villain roles, I think he would do exceptionally. Next is Superwoman, and I went back to my Matt Bomer idea with a great Wonder Woman actress playing the part, and I think Jamie Alexander would do wonderfully. Yes, Superwoman is more buxom in the comics. I still think Alexander would do a good job. Next is Johnny Quick, and it might be a bit of a cop-out, but my choice is Matt Letcher. I'm in the minority that think he's honestly a better Reverse Flash than Tom Cavanaugh, and having the transition from TV to film in terms of evil speedsters, I think having him would work for this. Next is Sea King, who will play a small role due to the fact that he gets killed early on, like in the Forever Evil comic, which this movie would be loosely adapting or just taking certain ideas from. I considered having Jason Momoa in the role, but due to the fact that he gets killed, I wouldn't want that. I think the next best thing is Josh Holloway. He's older, but has the more rugged look like Sea King did in his small role, as well as the fact that many people wanted him for the role way back when. Next is Power Ring, and again, another controversial pick. I would want Ashton Kutcher for the role. I think he would be good because he's played very cowardly and wimpy roles in the past, and I think he would be a good fit for the very cowardly Harold Jordan. Next two are Captain Thunder, the Captain Marvel counterpart, and Deadeye, Green Arrow's counterpart. For Captain Thunder, I would want Zachary Quinto, because I would want the stark contrast of a very emotionless actor playing the counterpart version of a hero who is lively and a child. Then for Deadeye, insert Charlie Hunnam here. Not a good actor, but it could work. Then finally is someone who is very different. It's actually a role I made purely for the film because I didn't really like Martian Manhunter's counterpart all that much, so I changed it to Martian Hunter. Bit of dumb name, but not as idiotic as Power Ring. Anywho, this version is actually the daughter of John Jones, Kim Jones, who was pulled to Earth instead. She eventually learns that she is the last Martian, and eventually goes crazy because of this. Taking advantage of this, the Earth-3 Erdell uses her for his own means, killing rivals and people who have wronged him. With this, she becomes a Martian assassin who eventually kills her mentor when she's done with him. She then becomes a villain for hire until the crime syndicate finds her and uses her. I think that's a bit more interesting than just making his counterpart a white Martian. I think someone great for the role would be Ivana Baccarat. Very talented, I think she can handle the type of role well. So, that's our crime syndicate, and everyone else will be returning. So, moving on. Lastly is Justice Society Legacy, which is pretty much all accounted for, because they all appeared in Dr. Fate, except for the villain, Vandal Savage, and with that, I think Keanu Reeves would be great for the role. And that's about it. Next up is Phase 3.